Hey guys, Ekim here, and I'm back with another knife video. This one is on 5 things you want to consider when choosing an EDC knife. First thing would be, is it legal where you live? What do you plan to use it for? Your preferences, which means do you like the way it looks, essentially. How do you plan to maintain it? And price. The king of all, can you afford it or even justify it? Alright, so we're going to go down the list. And we're going to make a kind of a pretend scenario on, let's say I'm shopping for a knife, and out of these we have right here. Now obviously the whole knife universe is available to you. If this is your first knife, maybe this is a kind of a process of elimination that you can use. But okay, we'll start off with, is it legal? I know a lot of the guys in the UK or even New York City, you're not allowed to have a locking knife, so maybe a friction folder like that is your only option. This is the one I made for the Sugar Creek Forge build along. So that's an option for you guys. But we're going to pretend that this we're allowed to have a locking knife. So we're going to eliminate this one. Now maybe you live in a state where you're restricted to blade size. You're only allowed to have 3 inches or less. So you might take a look at the Spartico Dragonfly, little 2-inch blade. That's an option for you, which eliminates a lot of these, unfortunately, if you're limited to a 3-inch blade length. You also have the Zancudo 3-inch blade. But let's pretend that you live in a state where you could have just about anything you want. I'm not going to go through autos. I don't have any autos here. I live in New York, so it's autos are pretty much illegal. There are certain situations where you can have it, but this is going to be just for standard folding knives, spring assists, and things of that nature. So okay, you got the legalities away out of the way, so you can have just about any locking knife you want. Now the big thing is, what do you plan to use it for? Is it just for EDC tasks? Is it for opening packages at work? If that's the case, about anything on the table is going to work. You know, maybe you're a carpenter and you need something with something of a super steel. So maybe you want something like this Benchmade that has M4 steel. You're going to pay extra for it, but if you're cutting carpeting all day long, I'm sorry about the oil. I oil all my knives before I put them away. Maybe you're cutting carpeting all day long and you need something that's going to hold an edge a little longer than an affordable knife. You know, or a value blade, I guess you could say it. What if it's a tactical situation? You're not exactly going to take your little Dragonfly as a secondary defense weapon. You could. I mean, maybe you're some kind of EDC ninja or something, but this probably wouldn't be your best choice. Now, if you're going to go tactical, maybe a better choice would be something like this K-Bar TDI, a fixed blade, because I'm a believer that you're not going to be able to unfold your knife in time. And even if you do, you don't have to worry about a fixed blade unlocking, breaking, anything like that. Your best bet is going to be a fixed blade for tactical use. That's just my opinion. I'm not trained or anything like that, so just kind of my thoughts on it. You also got, this is the one I carry every single day. It's a HK Plan D, because the TDI, I have the large one here, as you can see, quite a bit bigger, too big for me. Carry this on my belt. It's got some weight to it. You do get more reach, but it's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off. So I'm going to eliminate this guy. We'll eliminate the fixed blades, because let's say you're just using it for standard EDC. Now let's say you work on a boat and you need something that's going to be very corrosion resistant. So you might need to go with something with the H1 steel, like the Pacific Salt here. I've actually taken this swimming in the ocean with me on the boat, and a number of different high corrosion environments, and not a single spot of rust. So I can attest to their corrosion resistance. So if you work on a boat or something, that might be the way to go for you. But like I said, we're going to say you're just a normal, average, everyday guy, and you need an EDC knife for EDC tasks. So you can still use any of these. It's really up to you. Okay, preferences. Let's say you want something with, I don't know, a G10 handle. Okay, so you got the Spyderco Tenacious here. Open it for you guys. You like the grippy texture of the G10. You like the sturdiness of it. You don't like the lack of traction on something like this Kershaw Knockout. So, preference-wise, we're going to eliminate the Knockout because it doesn't have enough traction for you, let's say. Let's say you're not a fan of plastic handles. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with this knife. It's plenty strong. It's just got a plastic handle, and I don't mind it. I take every knife for what it is, and I don't expect any knife to be anything it isn't. So I have no problem with plastic handles, but let's say you don't like plastic handles, so that gets rid of this Mannix 2. Gets rid of the entire Salt series. You got the Dragonfly, the Pacific Salt, and the H1, I believe it was. So get rid of all those. Alright, so now we have silly little keychain knife. We'll get rid of that guy. Now, okay, so we have a bunch of G10 grippy materials, or you might go for a carbon fiber, or you might make an exception for aluminum if it's got something more to offer you. Okay, now let's say you're looking for a standard, very useful blade shape. So a Tanto isn't really fitting your criteria, like this Cold Steel Code 4. So maybe you you eliminate that because you want a standard blade. Maybe not. You don't like the Tanto, so we'll get rid of the Tanto. Okay, moving on with preferences. Let's say you think a 4-inch blade is a little too big. I agree with you. Or a 3 3/4 blade is a little too big. My sweet spots tends to be between 3 1/4 and 3 1/2. That's where I typically like my knives. So that would eliminate the zero tolerance 0200. It's a 4-inch blade, big heavy knife. So we'll get rid of that. The Essie. It's a pretty big blade, as you can see across my palm. It's longer than my palm. A little big for me. This is the Avispa, by the way. So we'll get rid of that guy. Whoop. You got the Benchmade 810 Contigo. Great knife. Just very much on the long side for me. This is another one, about a 4-inch blade. So because of our preferences, we're going to eliminate this one. There's nothing wrong with these knives. It's just maybe a little too big. So okay, we'll get rid of this guy. Alright, we're getting closer. Now, let's say, what else do we got here? I guess we can eliminate the Kershaw Knockout too. It's a little on the big side. It's about a 3 3/4 blade. So, a little too big. Alright, more about preferences. Now, let's say, out of all these, you wouldn't mind a flipper only knife like this Boker Quakin in Blackwash, or this Spyderco Domino. You really have no preference to thumb studs only, or maybe a thumb disc, or the Spyderco hole on this paramilitary too. So how do we eliminate it further? Maybe you need to conceal it. Maybe you hate low ride carry. So we flip all these over. We look at all the pocket clips. They're all pretty much a standard pocket clip. You're going to have something showing except for this HK Ascender. Cool little blade. I got this from the Knife Rights donation a couple years ago. but it's tip down only. I prefer tip up. And it's a low right clip. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't mind it, but a lot of people hate this. So let's say you want a standard pocket clip. So we'll eliminate this guy too. You know what, while we're at it, I think 3 inches is a little bit too short. I was saying before, at a 3 3/4 blade to about 3.5, well, 3.5 to 3 1/4 is about my sweet spot. So this little 3-inch SE Zancudo, a little too small for me, so we'll get rid of that. Same thing with the CQC K5, I believe it is, the Kershaw Emerson collaboration. Maybe a little too small. Okay. So now we got 3 Spydercos, a Boker, and a Kershaw. Okay. Next, we'll move on to maintenance. Now, how do you plan to sharpen it? Let's say you're pretty new to sharpening, and you really don't want to worry about a super steel. So if I had something on here that maybe had L-Max or M390 steel on it, maybe you would want to eliminate those. I don't have any of those on the table here, but you want to consider that as well. How do you plan on sharpening it? Does it have a bearing system? Like these two here, the Boker and the Domino, both have a bearing system. You really want to make sure that you don't get any sand or garbage in there. If you work in a sand pit somewhere, these two might not be your best option. You might want something that runs on bushings or washers, rather. But let's pretend it's just standard EDC carry. So the big thing now is price. Let's say you have about $100 limit. Or you have more limit than that, but you can't really think of spending more than $100 on a knife. And a lot of people are like that, and I can't blame them. You know, the Spyderco Domino is the most expensive knife I own at about 200 bucks. So, awesome knife, but I just can't think of spending 200 bucks on a knife, so we're going to skip this one too. Same thing with the Boker Quaken. Very cool knife. Not the most functional thing in the world, but it's cool. You know, I have an appreciation for cool things, how it's all nested into the handle like that. A very slim line. Carbon fiber, cool materials, but it's 150 bucks. So we're going to eliminate that one too. So now you got the Kershaw, the CQC 6K, I believe. This is a pretty cool knife. Around the 40 bucks, I believe it was. Spyderco Tenacious, I'm sure you've all heard of this one. Another one around the $40 mark. Be a great starting point as well. And the Paramilitary 2, the legendary Paramilitary 2. Now, how do you choose between these three? Well, I'll answer that question by asking you this. Which one's going to make you happier? You know, can you afford the $120 price tag on the Paramilitary? Comes with the better steel, comes with a nice lock, very, very good overall design, features. You get a lot for your money with this. And a lot of people attest to that. But are you okay with spending that kind of money? Is it worth it? Yes, absolutely. The Emerson. Maybe you want something a little more tactical. It's got the wave feature in it, as I failed to open it. That was my fault, not the knives. It's got the cool wave feature. Maybe you want something just a tiny bit more tactical. Or you want to just get your feet wet. This is your first knife ever. And believe it or not, this was probably one of my first quality knives. Was a Spyderco Tenacious. You can't go wrong with something like that. You just want to try it out. You're learning sharpening or whatever. You beat on your knives. And you can't think of spending any more than 50 bucks. Maybe this is the way to go for you. But the bottom line is, as long as it makes you happy, that's all that matters. You know, if I had all the money in the world and this thing was 5,000 bucks, but it made me happy, then who cares? Just go do it. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters. Same thing with the Kershaw or the Paramilitary. Now, I know what you're thinking. I want you to pick one. Please, please, please pick one. And to be honest with you, the one that I carry the most out of these three would be the paramilitary. Because you get a lot for your money. You really do. It's the S30V steel. Excellent action. Mine's not perfectly centered, but I don't care. It's not touching the scale or anything. A lot for your money. Now for years, I carried the Tenacious. That's all I had. Nothing wrong with it. I carry it every once in a while. It'll never leave my collection. But it made me happy at the time. Same thing with this Kershaw. I didn't get this all that long ago, and I still carry it. But I appreciate it for what it is. Now, if I had to choose one, out of all the knives that were on the table before, would I carry the absolute most? It would honestly be this one. The Spyderco Domino. And the reason for that is, it comes with an excellent steel. It gives me a level of enjoyment that's worth the money to me. It rides on the bearing, so it's got excellent action. It's flipper, or you can deploy it with the thumb. Cool materials. It's got the carbon fiber and the titanium. And it was hard for me to pull the 200 bucks out of my pocket to buy this. And I don't carry it the most because it's the most expensive of my collection at the moment. I carry it because I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So that's it, guys. I hope that helped and you can make some sense of my ramblings. I tried to kind of make notes and make some kind of sense of this. But guys, I hope that helps you out. I'll see you on the next one.